Lalo THR here. Today I'm going to talk about the passing of Hulk Hogan, and even more so, I want to talk about the reception, the reactions, and the response to his passing, which is going to be a big talking point of this video. First, let me preface by saying that I wasn't the biggest Hulk Hogan fan on the planet. I was when I was a kid. When I first started watching wrestling, I was a WCW guy before I became a WWF, ultimately WWE fan, AEW fan, etc. But it all started with WCW. And yeah, Hulk Hogan was obviously a humongous piece to that puzzle that made up Monday Nitro and the Monday Night Wars. And I was indeed a fan of Hulk Hogan as a kid. I was a huge Goldberg fan as well. But of course, as the years went on, your taste buds change, so to speak, right? With everything in life, and you know, all the way up till now in 2025, I am not by no means the biggest Hulk Hogan guy in the world, but I do respect all of his accomplishments and his contributions to the pro wrestling industry. That said, I do not condone racism. I do not condone any of the devious things that he did, may or may not have done in his career. Politicking, holding other talents down, stifling a potential union for pro wrestlers. And once again, I just want to make it clear, once again, I do not condone racism. Obviously, I'm going to talk about the controversy that has to do with Hulk Hogan. So I just wanted to preface with that right away, because in this video you might hear me sound as though I am defending Hulk Hogan and the things he's done in his life, and I'm not. And let's just jump right into it now, because all I really want to do is this. I just want to say that we have to respect the dead, man. I just want to start with that. I don't even want to start with Hulk Hogan's contributions. I don't want to start with Hulk Hogan as a wrestler or as a person and what he's done. I just want to start with that. We have to respect the dead as a society, as a civilized society, as a civilized people. We have to respect the dead, man. Because the things that I've been seeing on social media is absolutely disgusting. Despicable and disgusting in regards to the passing of Hulk Hogan and how people have reacted to it. And you know, it's funny. I just got done listening to another wrestling podcast right before I started recording it, and one of the talking points was them being upset that AEW took 48 hours to mention Hulk Hogan's death, and that's funny to me, because I feel like it's better to not say nothing at all than to say something negative about someone in their passing, because that's somebody who's now dead and they cannot speak for themselves anymore. They cannot defend themselves. They cannot counterpoint anything you're saying, and it's just wrong. If I have, I'm a single child. I'm an only child. I don't have a brother or sister. I actually have a half brother and half sister out there somewhere in the world, but I've never met them. But if let's say I had a brother. Let's say I had a brother, and he turned out to be a piece of shit, man. Like, he turned out to be somebody who was not respected. He said racist things and, tarnished his legacy, if you will. And he passes away, and now that's my brother. That's my flesh and blood. And I'm going on social media and whatever, and I'm seeing everybody saying, fuck that guy, he deserved to die, piss on his grave. I'm gonna dance all over his gravestone, fuck him, and this and that. If they cremate him, I hope they burn his fucking ashes. Like, what the fuck, man? Like, if they say that, that's gonna hurt me. Even though, that's my brother, and even though, yeah, he made a lot of mistakes in life, he did a lot of despicable shit, but that's gonna hurt me if I see that. Other people saying shit like that about my brother who's no longer here. You understand what I'm saying? So you gotta think that Hulk Hogan is a larger-than-life personality, obviously. He's a celebrity, and I'm not saying that you have to like the guy. I'm not saying you have to be a fan of Hulk Hogan. I'm not saying you have to accept any of his apologies that he may or may not have given you. But don't say nothing at all if you're going to resort to some of the comments that I just made. Because that is absolutely ridiculous, man. You know, I'm going to say right now, I've never seen, not even Chris Benoit got this level of disrespect when he died. And that's a man who murdered his own kid. That's a man who murdered his own child, his own flesh and blood, murdered him and his wife in the same night. Okay? A double homicide, a suicide, right? He killed his own wife and his own child, like a fucking 5-year-old, 6, I don't know how old Daniel Benoit was. But he murdered his own son in cold blood. And not even he got this kind of disrespect when he died. Okay? And when I say when he died, I'm talking about when we all found out the truth. Because obviously with Chris Benoit, there was a gray area where we didn't know 100% what happened just yet. And I mean, Monday night, WWE even did a Raw tribute show to him on Monday Night Raw, where Vince McMahon, you know, where they all paid respects to him. And then literally the following night, during the ECW taping, if I'm remembering correctly, Vince would come out and basically apologize for the whole thing, for the whole tribute show, after the facts had come to light that this man murdered his wife and child and then took his own life in the same night. Not even Chris Benoit, a child murderer, got this kind of level of disrespect that Hulk Hogan is getting. Now, and I understand, listen, again, I'm going to just repeat myself. I'm not asking you to be a fan of Hulk Hogan. I'm not saying that people should all pay respects to him and he should have tributes done by everybody and you know, and you should, you know, say something nice about him. I'm not saying that. But, like, yeah, he made some mistakes. I'm pretty sure murdering a child is worse than a word, you know? And I know he's done more than that, but that's the main reason for the disrespect that Hogan's getting on his death, because of a word he said. And he said it multiple times. Of course, I'm talking about the N-word. He said it multiple times, too. Not just in that one famous one about his daughter. His daughter dating a black dude. And Hogan started using the N-word, describing him. You know, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna go into the exact quote. You know, if you know, you know. But most people know. But that's not the first time he said it. He said it before in other times. And I mean, there's actually something worse he did that I didn't even know. I heard it from another podcaster, but during 2007 or so, his son was out intoxicated drag racing with a friend of his, and he ended up, you know, crashing out. And his friend in the passenger seat died. He got brain damage, and I don't know if he died actually, but he basically was like a vegetable after that. And then you could hear Hulk Hogan in a recording talking about, hey, you know, I don't know what he's done for God to bestow this type of scenario on him. And that's a very rough quote. But basically, in layman's terms, Hogan was blaming his friend for his own death, even though his son was in the driver's seat. You know, and that's worse than the N-word. If you ask me, that's even worse than the N-word. You know, blaming his son's friend for his own death when your drunk ass son was the one driving and caused his death, or caused him to become a vegetable. But because of a word that he said, you got people talking about piss on his grave, dance on his gravestones, fuck him, rest in piss, he deserves to die, blah, blah, blah. Y'all are just as bad as he was in those moments. If y'all are worse than Hulk Hogan at his worst, to be saying shit like that about the dead. You don't disrespect the dead, man. You know what I mean? If you don't got nothing nice to say, just don't say nothing at all. You know, I mean, I understand freedom of speech, but, you know, you want to exercise your freedom of speech against somebody who was exercising his right to freedom of speech. And what he said hurt you Now you're gonna disrespect someone in their death. Like, make it make sense, bro. Two wrongs don't make a right. And, you know, just the level of absolute disrespect and disgust that I've been feeling and seeing transpire over the last week since Hogan's death has just been mind-boggling, man. I just, again, I'm not the biggest fan of Hulk Hogan. I was as a kid when I first got into WCW. You know, I was a huge Goldberg mark too as a kid. But now as an adult, I can tell you over the last, you know, the better part of 25 years, the better part of 20 years in my life, I haven't been the biggest Hulk Hogan guy. But it's like, you know, you don't disrespect the dead like that. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm gonna say. The level of disrespect I've been seeing is crazy. When not even cats like Chris Benoit got that kind of treatment. And what Chris Benoit did is way worse than anything Hulk Hogan ever did. And I know Hulk Hogan's done a lot of bad shit. He was a big politicker. He held so many careers down in his career. You know, he when he heard that Jesse the Body Ventura was trying to start a pro wrestling union for the boys, Hulk Hogan snitched him out to Vince McMahon, ratted him out, and put that shit, you know, dead in the water. And that's one of the worst things he could have done, you know, for his fellow worker, for his fellow man. So, you know, beyond the N-word, beyond the sex scandal, he's done a lot of bad shit. We all have, man. Ain't nobody on this planet perfect. You know what I mean? And I'm sure you wouldn't like it if you died and somebody was saying rest in piss and fuck him, he deserved it, burn his ashes, piss on his grave. You wouldn't like that. And you're not perfect. Anybody listening to this, you ain't perfect. Nobody's perfect. You know? And yeah, man, he's done a lot of bad shit in his life, in his career. He's also done a lot of good. You know, he's told a lot of lies. He's told a lot of truths. You know, you never knew when Hulk Hogan was being Hulk Hogan or when he was being Terry Bollea from Tampa, Florida. You know what I mean? I just, you know, let me just say this. And this is off topic. I'm going to go off on a tangent here, but it very much so applies to this story. You know, I'm a truck driver, and at my last job, when I became a truck driver, I went through a company called Warner, and I became a trainer with that company. I literally just drove for them for like 8 months, and then they made me a trainer. I was not ready at all whatsoever to be a trainer, but I was. I became a trainer, and I started training another driver. Me and that driver, man, he sat in the passenger seat when I was driving. I sat in the passenger seat when he was driving. I had to watch him at all times. And we talked about pop culture. We talked about actors, movies, musicians, music. And we were talking about music, and one of the topics we talked about was, hey, what was the first album you ever purchased? Right? Like all the way back to when you were a little kid. What was the first album you bought or asked your parents to buy you? And I told him, and y'all can make fun of me all you want. Y'all can make fun of me all you want. But and this is the damn truth. This is the truth, 100% fact. The very first musical album that I ever bought, which I didn't buy, I asked my mom to buy it for me. But the very first album that I ever owned was a Puff Daddy album. And I don't even remember the name of the fucking album. I don't even remember the name of it. I want to say Family, Bella Familia or some I don't even remember the name of the album. But it's the album cover with him on it. I want to say Biggie is on the cover, Little Kim is on the cover. Like the whole, you know, Puff Daddy crew is on the cover, I want to say. They're all in tuxedos. But my very first record that I ever owned was a Puff Daddy record. When I was a little kid, I was a big Puff Daddy fan. Yeah, y'all can make fun of me. No Diddy, whatever. Y'all can make fun of me. I was a big Puff Daddy fan. That's what his name used to be, Puff Daddy. And I liked his music. I liked Biggie Smalls. I loved it. It was weird. It's weird looking back in hindsight because I'm I'm a West Coast kid, you know, a West Coast kid from the barrios of Los Angeles. But I was over here bumping, you know, East Coast rappers when I was a kid. I was a fan of Diddy, of Biggie, Busta Rhymes, Nas. You know what I mean? Like, pretty much the only West Coast rappers that I fucked with throughout my childhood was Snoop. You know, Snoop, and of course Ice Cube. And anyway, but the point is, so I told him that, yeah, the first record I ever owned was a Puff Daddy record. And we were talking about the scandal with Diddy right now, and you know, all the weird shit that he's been in, the all white parties and the orgies and the fucking baby oil, whatever the hell that fool got into. And he told me as well that he used to look up to Puff Daddy as well when he was a kid. And I told him something that really resonates with this story of Hulk Hogan. And I told him, you know what, man? We really have to start separating the art from the artist, or else we ain't gonna have any heroes left. That's what I told him. Those are my exact words. I wish I could have recorded that, to be honest, because that's a gangster ass quote right there. But that's what I told him. I said, we need to learn how to separate the art from the artist, or else we ain't gonna have no heroes left. You know, because the old quote used to be, never meet your heroes, right? Never meet your heroes. But I think the new quote should be that we need to separate the art from the artist, or we ain't gonna have no heroes left. Because it's true, you know, and a lot of people that we look up to and listen to and watch on TV, we think of them in a whole different, we hold them to a different standard because they're public figures. But at the end of the day, they're not perfect, and a lot of the time they're a lot more flawed than we thought. A lot more flawed. And being in the public eye will do that to you too. Being famous, being rich, being wealthy, that shit, it puts a whole nother layer of what's the word I'm looking for? Man, there's a word I'm looking for, but it makes them feel like they're invincible, like they could do whatever the fuck they want, you know? And that's why a lot of the times our heroes, our artists that we look up to, they do a lot of stupid shit because they think they can get away with it. Whether it's because of all the money they have, or because of their notoriety, because of their fame and all the connections they have, they think they can get away with shit. So a lot of the times they're more flawed than us, you know, because of what I said. So that's the thing with guys like Hulk Hogan, guys like Chris Benoit. We gotta separate the art from the artist, man, because what they did in the ring was special. You know, Chris Benoit is kind of an outlier though, because murdering a child in cold blood, you know, your wife and child, I mean, that's a whole nother level. I don't know if I could ever separate him from that. You know, every time I see Chris Benoit in a YouTube video, I just can't help but think of little Daniel, man, and his wife Nancy, to be honest with you. You know, that one is difficult. But like in the case of Hulk Hogan, yeah, I mean, he said some hurtful shit, you know, and he wasn't the most innocent guy that he portrayed as the Hulk Hogan character. That eat your vitamins, say your prayers, brother, you know. But I could definitely go back and watch Hulk Hogan versus The Rock, and Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant, and I could remember the larger than life Hulkster, and I could separate the Hulkster from Terry Bollea. I could absolutely do that, and that's what I'm going to do from this point forward, because, you know, Hulk Hogan, he's the Michael Jordan of professional wrestling, man. He's the Michael Jordan of professional wrestling, the Babe Ruth of professional wrestling, the Muhammad Ali of professional wrestling, the Dale Earnhardt of professional wrestling. So it's very difficult to not acknowledge what he's done for this business. And I'm not saying that you're obligated to do so. You know, you don't have to, but I'm just saying it's very difficult to think of professional wrestling and not think of Hulk Hogan and what he's done, because quite frankly, he built this business, man. Along with Vince McMahon, if Hulk Hogan, if Hulkamania wasn't running wild in the 80s, there would be no tribal chief. There would be no American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes, and finish his story and this and that. There would be no WrestleMania Night 1, Night 2. There would be no SummerSlam Night 1, Night 2. You feel me? There would be none of this shit. No WWE Network on Peacock. There would be none of this stuff. So, we have to learn to separate the art from the artist. That's all I'm saying, man. He's contributed a lot, and it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough to think about everything. I'm sorry, I'm getting sidetracked because I'm driving, and a CHP just rolled up on me right now, but he pulled over, so I thought he was gonna try to get me for distracted driving because I got my headset on and I'm flapping my gums. He probably thinks I'm on the phone yelling at somebody. But anyway, yeah, man, that's the main thing I wanted to get out. I've had 7 days now, a whole week to process Hulk Hogan's death and everything, and you know, it's just a shame to me though. Again, I just cannot get over the response, the reaction from the people on social media and the things that they've been saying, and I can't get over that, you know, because I mean, maybe I was raised differently, but I believe you're supposed to respect the dead, man. I don't give a fuck if it's Adolf Hitler, dog. I don't give a fuck if it's Adolf Hitler. I'm not gonna, you know, say those type of things. You know, Adolf Hitler, I'm not gonna say nothing about his ass, you know. That's the attitude you should have. If it's somebody that hurt you that badly, don't even acknowledge their death. Don't even say nothing. You're not obligated to do anything. You're not obligated to pay respect. You're not obligated to acknowledge somebody's contributions or anything they've done in life. You're not obligated to do nothing. All I'm saying is don't disrespect the dead like that in the manner that I've said, that I've gave examples, because that shit is wrong. That shit is all the way wrong and disgusting to see. Hulk Hogan's legacy is complicated, man. He's gonna be remembered in a lot of ways, and certain people are gonna choose to remember him for maybe things he's said, maybe things he's done, and then other groups of people are gonna remember the wrestler. They're gonna remember the Hulkster. They're gonna remember what he's done in the ring, and nobody is right or wrong, you know, because if he hurt you, he hurt you. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you how you're supposed to feel or how you're supposed to remember Hulk Hogan. You know, that's not my job. I'm gonna remember the Hulkster that had the greatest WrestleMania match of all time, and you could quote me, because Hulk Hogan versus The Rock at WrestleMania 18 in Toronto, or was it Toronto or Montreal? Whatever, it was in Canada. But that WrestleMania match between Hulk Hogan and The Rock, 2002, WrestleMania 18, that's the greatest WrestleMania match of all time. You could quote me on that. I don't care what nobody says. That is the greatest WrestleMania match of all time. 110%. And I'll tell you why. I mean, you know, Hulk Hogan wasn't no Kurt Angle, you know, in terms of wrestling. He was no Mr. Perfect Kurt Hennig. He was no, he wasn't a great technical mat wrestler. But what he was a great performer. He knew how to carry the crowd in the palm of his hands and how to make the people feel something that they've never felt before. And, you know, that match is so special, not just because of the crowd either. You're probably thinking, he's just saying that because of how loud the crowd was. No. Yeah, the crowd was a big component into why this match is special. The energy, unlike anything I've ever seen before, absolutely. But it was the story that was told in the ring and the circumstances behind the story told in the ring. You gotta remember, Hulk Hogan was going into this match as the despicable heel, the bad guy, the NWO figurehead. He literally tried to commit first-degree murder on The Rock, building up to this match when he ran him down in the ambulance truck, right? In the big old truck. While The Rock was inside the ambulance, he rammed them, right? Literally tried to commit murder on this man. He was supposed to be the devious bad guy, the villain, the super villain. And The Rock was supposed to be the white meat, baby face, young star, young mega star that took over the world already. But when these guys entered the ring, the tables were completely turned. The script was completely flipped because all of the Canadian fans remembered the Hulkster that ran wild in the 80s. The same Hulkster that practically invented WrestleMania. Not invented it, but made WrestleMania what it became. Because even then, WrestleMania was big, but even then, I don't think the people could fathom how big it would become today, in this day and age. But that match was special, man. The ebbs and flows, the storytelling, the facial expressions. You know, as bad as, you know, as much as people criticize Hulk Hogan for being a bad wrestler, not being a very good wrestler, they should give him his flowers for his facial expressions, man. Hulk Hogan has the absolute greatest facial expressions in the whole business. His face tells the story. He don't even need to do anything physical in the ring. When The Rock, you know, spanked him with his belt, with his own weight belt. When The Rock, you know, smacked him around for his patented, you know, combo where he spits in his hand and smacks you. You just look at Hogan's face. He don't even need to sell. He's one of the best sellers, by the way, in the history of the business. But you look at his face, and he tells you the story just with the look on his face, the facial expression. Second to none. Absolutely second to none. And what I loved about the match was just how Hulk Hogan turned into the baby face and The Rock turned into the dastardly heel, even though it was built up to be the complete other way around. And they, on the fly, they flipped the script because they had to, because the crowd, I don't know if they were anticipating that beforehand. I don't know. And I don't want to know. I don't want to know because I want this match to stay special. I'd like to believe that on the fly, they flipped the script. You know, The Rock turned heel basically for that night, and Hogan turned babyface for that night. It wouldn't be just for that night, of course, as we know. But man, that was artistry. That was complete professional wrestling artistry on display, man. What they did that night. That's a match that, you know, anybody that says, why do you watch wrestling? What is it about this that why do you watch it? And you know it's fake. You know that it's just people pretend fighting. Why do you watch it? I'll show them this match between Hogan and Rock. This is why I watch it. Listen to that crowd. Look at Hogan's face. Look at the drama. Listen to the announcers, the commentators going crazy. I mean, how can you not watch this? How can you not think this is special? Just feel it. That's all you gotta do. Put on that match, look at it, and just feel it. It's the same reason why you go and watch Avenger movies. The same reason you go watch Marvel movies every time they come out. Fantastic Four, The First Steps. Great movie, by the way. But that's the same reason why I watch pro wrestling. The same reason you went to see Fantastic Four, The First Steps. And The Rock versus Hogan at Mania 18 showcases everything that makes pro wrestling special. It is the greatest WrestleMania match of all time. 100%. You know, I know Taker Michaels was something special. I know that there's been a lot of special matches. Angle Lesnar at Mania 19. You know, there's been a lot of special matches, right? But this match here between Hogan and The Rock, WrestleMania 18, it really showcased what pro wrestling is all about. 110%. You know, if there was a class in school for pro wrestling, like I mean in a university to study pro wrestling, you know, in the same way that you would study like, you know, civics or some kind of electory subject, you know, this is the match right here that you would show to a class. The Rock Hogan, this is a match you would show to a pro wrestling class. Because it really, again, it really shows you everything that makes pro wrestling and what it's about. So I'm going to end with that because that's how I choose to remember Hulk Hogan. And yes, I acknowledge all the bad things he's done. But I choose to remember the larger than life Hulkster, the real American, the guy that, catapulted WWF and WrestleMania to what it would ultimately become today. That's who I choose to remember. Hulk Hogan didn't murder anybody. He didn't kill a kid. It's easier for me to separate the art from the artist in this situation. I'm not saying you should do the same, but that's what I'm gonna do. Because I remember Hulk Hogan running wild, brother. Rest in peace.